I'll start by introducing myself, and we'll just go through the team here. My name's Gregory. I'm an Air Force active duty officer. I'm a captain, and I work for AFWERX. We're going to be going through this presentation today. I've got a bunch of questions prepped for these guys, but would much rather answer any questions from the crowd. So if you have them, drop them in the chat function or drop them in the Q&A. We'll make sure we get to those. And if we run out of time and don't get to those, just feel free to shoot your name on there, and we'll reach back to you with some answers. And I'll just volunteer the crew for this because I know they've already talked about engaging with you guys. If their contact info is going to be on the screen, so if you want to engage with these guys, feel free to reach out, and hopefully you guys can set up a time to talk. So if we could just dive right in, we'll go to Samantha, if you want to tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Hi, I'm Samantha Snabes. I am an Air Force reservist. I'm in the Guard on the weekends, but during the week, I have the honor of serving as a catalyst and co-founder for Re3D. We're a spinoff of Engineers Without Borders, NASA Johnson Space Center. And in 2013, we had a vision to make toilet-sized 3D printers that are now in 50+ countries and go as big as a shipping container, using filament as a feedstock. So we're on the polymer side, and thanks to the NSF SBIR program, we were recently able to modify our fleet of printers to now also print from pellets or regrind, which we see as a path to printing from trash. We're here at the showcase today, showcasing the GigaLab, which is a shipping container outfitted with our large-scale 3D printers, whether they're filament-based or from pellets or regrind, to allow you to do quick stockpiling, sustainment, and project-based learning as we think about a base of the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha. And let's go over to Chris now.
Yeah, so my name's Chris, and I work for Formlabs. I oversee our government and Department of Defense business here. I'm on the enterprise team. And at Formlabs, our mission is to expand access to digital fabrication, high accuracy digital fabrication. So we make accessible 3D printers, accessible from price, ease of use, ease of acquisition, ease of scaling, and also ease of deployment. We're a manufacturer and distributor of 3D printers and the high performance polymers that go into them. Our flagship technology is the desktop SLA printers. For the past 6 years, we're launching large format SLA and SLS nylon right around the time of the government fiscal year. We'll be shipping those units. And we also do custom material development, custom hardware and process development, and even have some custom material development, open software for government customers and advanced end use materials. So we deliver an accessible 3D printing platform.
Awesome, thank you. Now over to Greg.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg. I'm with EOS. For those of you who don't know EOS, we're more on the industrial side of things than some of the other members of this panel. So our machines are all powder based, so using powder materials. We have platforms that work in the polymer space and platforms that work also in the metal space. My role at EOS is a senior vice president of applied technology. So what that means is I run all types of engineering teams and R&D teams working with our customers to industrialize applications and really get 3D printing into end use components. I don't have a military background like a lot of my co-presenters up here. However, EOS and a lot of my teams work with the military. So we are proud to be kind of the platform of choice for the Air Force and also for the DoD. A lot of our polymer systems are up and running together, for example, at Rock Island Arsenal, together with a company that we work with called Phillips Federal. So we're super pumped to be a part of all things DoD. We see a great future there and would really like our platforms and our materials to be more heavily involved. So happy to talk about it today.
Yeah, so Greg, back into you a little bit. You mentioned you kind of touch all over the DoD. Who would you say your biggest customer is in the DoD? You work mostly with the Air Force, Army, Navy, and then with that, who's kind of leading the charge in the 3D printing space?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I see, honestly, from my viewpoint, is that things right now are unfortunately very scattered, and it's events like this to bring experience together, which really helps drive things forward. We launched a public-private partnership with a supply company named Phillips Federal with Rock Island Arsenal. So they are actually doing production of parts, of polymer parts for the Army. So that's one, concrete example that we can point to. Together with the Air Force, we've done a number of projects looking at developing applications I would say, now I show my ignorance here, but in my world, it counts as government related. NASA has been a large driver of applications and trying to push the boundaries of what's possible. And really what we see is a wide variety of things happening as well. You know, there's everything from let's develop a new material or a new piece of software together. That's more, let's say, low technology readiness level and more in the development front, all the way to, you know, how would it look like to design an actual factory of the future, and what would be you know, the OEE of that factory, and what is the cost per part, and how do we think about distributing that factory around the world in a better way. And then a lot of the things that we talk about there, other companies like Sam at Re3D and Formlabs, they can do similar things. Because at the end of the day, what the military needs, what the Department of Defense needs, is all of these tools in their tool belt to be working together in an efficient and distributed way to improve the supply chain. And that's really the message, I think, when you put this group of people together.
Yeah, and then heading over to Samantha here, counting on my Air Force sister here to kind of hold the fort down. So would you say that any branch is kind of leading the charge, Air Force, anyone at all in additive manufacturing, Air Force, any branch at all? And who are you working with the most?
Yeah, in order to avoid a conflict of interest, most of our DoD leads come in organically, just through inbound Google searches. We obviously do our best to try and rank in our industrial applications and materials, as well as pursuing some grants. Being in the Air Force, I want to say the Air Force, the Air Guard is the strongest user. But when you think about it in terms of, when I think about the potential for AM to do great things, I think the Marines, specifically Chris Woods and his team, did an amazing job through Marine Maker and showing the applications for forward deployment. But when you think about number of users, I think of the Army. So I'm excited about Army Futures Command and the initiatives that the Army is standing up around innovation, because they have so many users, and the more motivated people and problem solvers, as we call them, that start to work on real world problem sets, I think the more amazing ideas that we'll start to see. But that being said, the Navy has the biggest budget. So I'm excited to see, what NAVAIR is doing, and Hack the Machine and March, and all the initiatives around Naval X as well. But I think, just as we see with 3D printers, we're all different. Our three technologies are very different. Sometimes we serve the same market. But as Greg pointed out, we're different tools in the toolkit. We're part of an ecosystem, and the same can be said for the DoD. So, as we think about, like, say, that digital thread and file sharing, I think there's going to be a need to make sure that we're not siloed. And for geometries and applications that are similar, we're collaborating. And the same can be said within the DoD AM community as well. I'm excited about this, and part of the reason why we had pitched this panel is, I think there's tremendous opportunity for us to look at use cases where we put our technologies together. So, we've reached out to Formlabs shamelessly and Diana to try and noodle on, what we could do with our style of 3D printing and theirs. And, we've had similar conversations with EOS in the past. Earlier today, I was talking to Big Metal Additive, who's here, and trying to think about where we intersect. But I think, there's a need to convene, but, selfishly, I'm always going to promote the Air Guard and AFWERX and the Air Force.
So Chris, going over to you there, talking about some of those specific use cases, where are some of your use cases that you see in DoD?
Yeah, so I mean, with our technology, if people don't know about it, is a resin-based printer. So the flagship product is a desktop, a stereolithographer printer. And usually what we see is high accuracy prototypes and jigs and fixtures is really a common use case. And that goes everywhere from the innovation lab, doing a lot of prototyping, places where they serve a lot of different applications on base, Air Force Research Laboratory, things like that, where they really need precise parts and a wide array of materials, like different polymers that perform similar to injection molded plastics, albeit at the prototype stage, and also jigs and fixtures that would hold in optical equipment, clips and mounts, things like that, even warfighter parts on like downrange applications. But most recently, we've seen huge wide-scale adoption in dental and medical use among all three service branches. So the first ones we got in touch with was Navy Digital Dentistry leadership, who really did a lot of training and education and looped us in on some of that. our company was really born out of pain in 3D printing. So pain in inaccessibly priced or hard to use equipment that really needed operator training, cloud connectivity issues. We have a standalone printer, so it can really go in anywhere. It's a really versatile thing. Standalone software and hardware. But just recently, the Air Force Medical has really impressed me with how they've standardized training in their CAD/CAM workflows for going from wet to digital dentistry. And we see medical adoption across hospitals, and we've been fortunate enough to get involved with the training METC Schoolhouse in San Antonio, and the postgraduate dental schools in Army and Navy, and the ADLs across all 3 branches. And the Air Force has really scaled up very well with it in that CAD/CAM training for dental lab techs, as an example. 3D printing is standard part of that curriculum. And we're very fortunate to have a lot of adoption in that because our printer is very easy to use. It's below a lot of the thresholds that make it really complicated to acquire equipment, and very easy to plug and play. People move from one command or one base to another, and they need to be able to rapidly spin up new lab techs and doctors who are working with the technology. So we're an easy training thing for deployment there. So I would say that's been the most recent kind of boom and who's used our equipment in a specific use case. It is all over the place, but that's one of the ones we're excited to be a part of.
Yeah, and Chris, I actually want to pull on that thread a little bit and then maybe go over to Greg and get your thoughts on the commercialization side. But so Chris, when you're talking about going over to dental and medical, like that is an industry that exists on the outside. A lot of probably cross collaboration between, or very similar products between what the DoD is doing and what the commercial side is doing. What are you seeing between the differences in the industries? Is the government asking for similar stuff? You're seeing a lot of overlap. Is there a way to utilize the same supply chain? What are your thoughts there?
You're talking about commercial versus government business.
Right.
They are. So, I mean, that's one of those industries where a lot of the professionals have training and expertise that is coming from benefiting from industry developments in things like scanning and design equipment that they'll need for after their service and during. And there's a lot of civilian contractors who work in on those dental labs and provide experience, because the dental industry is very fast moving. It's usually not very price sensitive though. So what we see a lot is those dental people have a lot of money to throw around, and they really can have more leeway to kind of like gamble on some new technology, dip their toe in. But when the DoD has money to spend on equipment, they want to make sure it's spent right. So they're looking for reliability and repeatability. Some of the things that kind of draw attention in headlines in the dental industry are things that you could market your dental practice with to try to make more money, whether that be flashy dentistry that does something really high-end stuff, or like speed and having just like, give me the most expensive thing and the like highest end product. So what we found in dental is that price is not an indicator of quality. So we've benefited from having low cost hardware, a very accessible price, and a really easy support network of how we replace our units. So if someone's printer goes down for us, DoD wants to get operational very quickly, and they can't have 3 or 4 machines at every dental lab. We have Air Force dental laboratories that have 1 or 2 people. So if they want to get back to work and make hard night guards, splints, or whatever it may be, it's very labor intensive. We can mail them a new printer within days and have them up and running. And our price point, our accessibility, and how we make it easy to use and easy to acquire makes it so that you don't need a massive budget justification or huge contracting effort just to bring in a printer that you need to make a $3 or $4 appliance like a splint or a model for printing. So they ask for different things. They're looking for repeatability and reliability. And luckily, I'm confident when I speak to someone at Air Force Medical, especially, I know our product works. So as soon as they get one, they're going to talk about it. They're going to use it a lot. I'm not just trying to spin out the most expensive hardware we have.
Gotcha. And then Greg, since your background is more on the commercial side than on the federal side, or maybe not now anymore, we'd love to get your thoughts on that commercial versus federal discussion as well.
Yeah, so when it comes to the medical industry, whether federal or commercial, together with the aerospace industry, has really been the 2 driving markets for additive manufacturing historically, right? Over the last 30 years or so. EOS, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary. Formlabs, I'm not even sure, you guys are what, 10, 15 years? Not quite.
More like 7. More like 7.
Oh, I gave you too much credit. My point is that the industry is a lot older than a lot of people give it credit for. And so there's been a lot learned along the way. And there are, historically, I would say that the commercial industry learned a lot from the Department of Defense and the things that were developed in NASA. Nowadays, the trend has kind of been reversing slightly. And if I just give maybe two examples, one is on even in low-cost printable things. I brought some show and tell. So I try to hold this up. So Sam, you may be able to help us with what this is, based with a female background.
I'm wearing something now.
Yeah. So so you can print things like this in many different technologies. A mascara brush is not all that different from a nasal swab, which a lot of people have been working on now with the current coronavirus crisis and kind of the response there. So the point is there are things from the commercial industry which can lead back into the Department of Defense. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is a project that we have ongoing right now with the NFL on helmet design. And you know, can we study helmet design? Can we think of ways to improve that, ways to customize that, to make that digital thread that Sam was talking about that goes from either 3D scanning to modeling to considering the use of the helmet to know where protective zones need to be, printing it, and finally making that application. So I see the information flow going both ways now. And what I also see is a maturity of the technology, you know, not only to talk about EOS, but as the industry as a whole, really making machines and materials that are reproducible and usable now. It's no longer new, it's ready.
Gotcha. We actually had a question, and so Samantha, I'm going to give you first crack at this. And just FYI, we're only going till what is that, 3:20 today, not 3:25. Sorry about that. So we'll be quicker on this answer, and I want to give all you guys a last second plug in here for everybody. For Samantha though, what is the highest formal level of AM coordination within the DoD anyone has seen between the services? Have you seen some cross collaboration?
Yeah, and again, you know, I think a lot of it is incumbent on the OEMs, but I know when we visited customers on site at bases, it's not uncommon for them also to have, say, a Formlabs system or an EOS system sitting side by side with their Gigabot, again, because we're different tools in the toolkit. But what has been encouraging to me is I've had the honor of supporting as a mentor, an initiative called Air Force Maker, and particularly Air Force Maker at SOS. And so we're starting to see, you know, in terms of the digital thread movement around file sharing and getting stuff up in one place, because not everyone knows how to design, and providing that quick access to files. There's been some cross collaboration with other communities within the Navy and the Marines that are also working on this, and the platforms that we share. So that's been really inspiring to me. Where I've also heard interest is in the ability, you know, with our system that can take reclaimed plastic and using maybe prints or materials from other systems and then putting them into our system as a way of repurposing that waste. So that's kind of another unusual way that you might see some collaboration. There is a Defense Additive Manufacturing Summit, and that's generated good dialogue, but I would say we still have a long way to go. You know, the military's still wrapping their minds around the appetite for risk, the qualification, the standards for printing, which a lot of us are beholden to and we share. So it's, again, up to us to help shape that. And then we've seen some efforts around materials. So looking at, you know, either in the recycled space or for the materials the three of our platforms used, and seeing, you know, where maybe they could be leveraged in more than one way or across more than one user. So there's a few different ways in that ecosystem I think we can share. But what we can do is start by sharing our successes and then also failures along the way. So our tax-paying dollars aren't repeating mistakes.
As a finance guy, I love that. I wish we had a little bit more time to get into this, but running short. So I'll just say, if you guys had to leave this audience with a quick, you know, 10 to 20 second thought, you know, what would be your, oh, looks like we have a little more time. So maybe a 30-second thought on what would be your takeaway for them. And we'll go to how about Chris first?
Sure, I'll go with that. So yeah, I would say in looking at additive manufacturing and how DoD is evaluating uses for it, I would encourage DoD leadership and people who are innovating. I was impressed by Air Force, how any level, any rank enlisted officer is enabled to innovate, is to look at ways where additive really provides value inherent to the technology. So rather than just looking at printing a replacement part because it can be 3D printed, look at things about why they would be 3D printed. Can we lightweight this part or make it better? Can we add value in improving a material rather than just 3D printing for 3D printing's sake? So be smart about how you put that money through and how you can scale it out. And from a Formlabs perspective, I know we're an off-the-shelf hardware manufacturer and our product is relatively low cost. It looks like it's sold on a web store. What I would say is please challenge your manufacturers and OEMs to deliver more value for you than their product is at its face value. We have material scientists and applications engineers who have helped industry and DoD customers scale out additive applications that go far beyond the off-the-shelf use cases of our printers. So I always say you wouldn't call your Stanley Black & Decker rep if your toaster oven was busted or you had something cool to do with it. But that is not the case with Formlabs. If you have something, a challenge, a unique challenge or material that you haven't seen in additive, call us, ask us, because there's a lot more people and scientists behind Formlabs who built our company. I will say there have been 50,000 printers made in SLA from 1980 to when our company started, and we've made 90,000 since. So we have a technology that has worked and scaled up really big, but we have a lot of people who did that, and we built it all from scratch ourselves. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us with creative or new ways that haven't been done yet.
Yeah, and I'll just volunteer the other two companies while they're here for that as well. Sorry, guys. So Greg, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, okay, so I have two final thoughts. The first one is, if 3D printing or additive manufacturing is going to be a tool in the tool belt of engineers, no matter what branch of the service they're in, how do you put that tool belt in their hands? And that's through education and training. And what I would encourage the entire DoD to do is to please collaborate, please work together, because between EOS, Formlabs, MIT, everyone is creating education and training programs. They are very good, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel there to be able to put that tool into the tool belt of your engineers. The second point I want to make is, how does additive enter into your organization? And there are effectively two ways. One is through new product development and using it to lightweight things like Chris was talking about. The other way is through supply chain engineering and trying to save costs in terms of spare parts, low volume, high mix type of products, stockpiles, and things like that. And I would encourage the DoD to look seriously at both sides, because the business case matters. And just because something looks like a bracket and it's not that expensive, the business case can be seriously impacted in a positive way by utilizing a technology like additive, whereby you don't have to manufacture massive numbers. You can do things more to the demand that's there. So consider that in the back of your mind.
Awesome. And then over to Samantha to wrap us up.
Sure. Yeah, I would concur with Chris. Like 3D printers are evolving. We've all evolved a lot since we first started our companies. And we need the feedback from you to drive the requirements so that we make systems that are beneficial. But just a quick shout out for Garrett. He leads the Spark Cells initiative. So if you're curious about 3D printing, know that there's 80 plus resources now, maker spaces for you on bases to plug in and to learn. There's also online platforms like Air Force Maker. So, you might feel your idea is silly, but if you've had it, someone else has. And the other thing is, being in the Air Force, sometimes we have a bias to think about, how we can support aircraft and the flight line, which is great. But there are a ton of systems on ground at your DGS and your AFSC and non-traditional commands you might think of, like AETC. For example, we're making 6-foot tall GBU and JDAM kits with a custom printer we did for the Air Force for virtual reality and augmented training to look at ordnance that would otherwise be too heavy, so that pilots can see it before they fly and maintenance crews can understand it. So you know, just if you look at your AFSE and just think about how I could do things better. And if AM is a solution, know that there are resources through the innovation communities that are standing up every day that want to help you think about what tool is best for you. And then on the OEM side, how a lot of us do sales really is more like consulting. So you reach out to Chris or Greg or myself and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And you know, we can rely on our experience, and most of our companies really want to walk that dog with you to make sure that, you know, you're using, again, our taxpayer dollars responsibly. Finally, I think my team would shoot me if I didn't say, if you want to continue this conversation, feel free to swing by our booth at 7668, and I will shamelessly invite Formlabs and EOS to join us in case anyone wants to chat further.
Perfect.
Yes. With that, for everybody, the contact info is in the chat. So if you want to reach out to any of these individuals or even myself, please do. You know, these guys are more than willing to talk to you. With that, thank you to the panelists for coming on board and talking to everybody today. And thank you to the audience for coming out. I'm a minute over time. I apologize, but it's time for you guys to go back to the live programming, which I think is still going on. Hopefully Elvis is still there. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you.
Bye.